I know you have deep interest in this Wyatt 6
Yes.
stuff and
I am invested. I am invested, John.
The Bo Dallas Uncle Howdy interview that we saw on Monday Night Raw was some really gripping television, and I know you've got some thoughts on it. We haven't spoken at length about it. I'd love to hear what you thought about it.
I thought it was phenomenal. I mean, I think it's literally where you almost, I feel like it was kind of portraying someone talking to their inner self, you know, the way he was talking to his alter ego. So you have the alter ego, you know, playing the guy who's going to ask the tough questions, the wild questions, and like really try and break you down and get to the truth. And I feel like they portrayed that in a very strong way. And just watching Taylor, watching Bo Dallas answer, he was so believable. He was so good. It felt so real, probably because it is real. And I would imagine it was one of those things that was difficult. It was a difficult thing to film, but it was so real, but it added so much equity into him doing this for his brother, because he said he always looked up to his brother. He wanted to be his brother. And when it felt like they were finally there, which it was, they were on the verge of doing this together, then his brother was taken away from him. And, you know, he was lost in life. And just the way he voiced all this in the emotion and his expressions, I mean, it was practically perfect. And I thought this was like an amazingly put together segment, which just elevated the equity of Uncle Howdy and Bo Dallas on one, that character, that persona, to another level.
For me, it answered 3 questions that were very critical, and I'm really glad that it did that. Number 1, it gave you the why. It gave you the motivation of the character. Why, and even on a very surface level, because they didn't dig too deep into it, but we have an understanding that his actions are in honoring his brother's legacy now. That's huge. That gives us that gives us a framework for the entire group to work with, and that he felt forgotten. Number 2, they asked point blank, "Are you just exploiting your brother?" Which you and I talked about on the podcast last week. People are going to view it as that. They addressed that right away. That was great. And the third thing, which I think might have been the most important thing, was that it showed that Taylor Rotunda, Bo Dallas, can be a layered enough character and performer that he could be looked at as a top guy in this company at some point. And I understand it's just one segment, it's one litmus test, but think how much more valuable he came across in that one segment than the entirety of his WWE run prior to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's correct. What that segment did for him was massive, John. It was massive.
Yeah. I would love to now see those same exact types of interviews with each character in the Wyatt 6. I'd love to see Dexter Loomis talking to that Hawk, the Buzzard character. I'd like to see Joe Gacy talking to the Gas Mask, and Eric Rowan talking to the Rabbit Mask, and Nikki Cross, and understanding their whys. Why are they part of this? What about Bray's legacy made them want to be part of this? Let's understand that in full, and then imagine how impactful every time they show up on camera can be. What do you think of something like that?
I do. I think that's interesting. I almost think, because we have Bo Dallas as the leader, Uncle Howdy, obviously the leader of the group, the mastermind behind everyone. I would prefer to see the other characters explain their motivations in different ways, and I would save this and make it exclusive and unique to Uncle Howdy, because I think it's something you could go back to, and I think you want to highlight him above the rest as the leader to make him more important.
So would you have him interviewing them in that case?
That might work. Yeah. That could work. I could see that, having him speak to all the characters to understand their motivations.
Yeah.
But I would try and centralize that to him, where that is like his thing now.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's great. Again, the more for me, my taste, and what I think sustainability too, the more they lean into the psychological thriller element of it, the more successful it's going to be. I think if you lean too much in the spookiness and the smoke, it feels, I don't know, it feels to me a little tropey pro wrestling kind of thing. Whereas if you're leaning more into the thriller side of it, okay, that's something that's going to resonate cross-platform, and people are going to be really drawn into what they're seeing. You could have shown that segment to a non-wrestling fan and just been like, watch this. What do you take away from it? And they probably would have been intrigued by it versus showing someone crawling through smoke in the middle of a wrestling ring. Maybe I'm being too critical. I don't know, but that's just kind of
no. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think there's times whenever you see them be the characters, there is going to be those creepy crawls through the smoke, especially by Abigail, by Abby. And I think the other characters are going to do things that are terrorizing and frightening. But I think if you give all of these characters like real life human being meanings and motivations, I think that will go a lot further.
Yeah. And I'm really intrigued by it. I hope that they continue to develop it and pace it out. And I'm looking for, I'm happy Chad Gable's not dead. I was concerned about that after last week, but thankfully he's okay. In fact, he's thriving. He won a #1 contenders match to get into Money in the Bank. So